let's get started then. Let the people, yeah. Thank you, Kirsty, again for allowing us to get our awesome session going again. So, Chirag, the question was, like I was asked, there were a few things I put together. One is lifespan of CISOs based on what my understanding is about 18 months, number one. Number two, CISOs roles have evolved to the point even SEC and everyone is trying to charge. So it's like a very kind of a dangerous position. So how do as a CISO, since you're part of the public company CISO, so see the role and how it's evolving, and from a lot of people even career-wise, right? Those who wanted to be CISOs now, if they see these kind of things, probably might start wondering. So I would like to see your perspective historically. I mean, you've been in the whole security of this area.
Yeah. So yes, it is a scary word, but it's not as scary. So I don't want people to get discouraged by things happening. Yes, it will happen, but you have to be careful with how this role evolves. About 5, 10 years back, right? And as time progresses, our primary focus from having perimeter-based defenses, policy enforcement, and reactive security, you're going into the proactive world. You're becoming a business value to the organization and not just a protector, right? Which basically means CISOs are now strategic leaders, and we have to be sitting with the product team, services team, sales team, marketing team, people who are selling. You don't just become a cost center; you become a business value for the organization. That's where you're focusing on business enablement and how your security strategy is going to align and make a sales team or a product team run faster. How you are providing the business enablement, that's important. Um, to me, security, we have a little tagline that I put in, and my tagline is security is all about business enablement with protection of brand. And that's what I've been carrying for a while. And I think that theme is now a very true in the world of cloud security and driving organizational culture and efficiency around security. The other thing is we are no longer a security team or security function as police. We are not police. We are business enablers, and in order to have that, we must engage at the senior level, articulating risks in business terms, and of course aligning security strategy with what the business outcome and objectives are that company wants. The goal alignment of security strategy and security outcome is very much needed. I specifically sit with, and I call all the security leaders are kind of like they are sales people. We sell security. We work with the customer. We work with the prospects. We work with the sales team, marketing team, PR teams. We work with legal teams to make sure that there is a good understanding of where we want to drive and how our ROI should be of the security, right? Because it's an expensive department, expensive function, right? Many tools, technologies, resources that get involved in this. So I think today we are now strategic leaders and not just reactive leaders for the organization.
Thank you, Chirag. Basant, how about you? What are your perspectives and the role of a CISO and all these points, if you can address from your insights and what you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I second Chirag. But to start off, you mentioned CISO's tenure is 18 months. I've already been here 36 months, so I should start wondering what's going on. But again,
you might be on the left tail.
or Vasant, you may not be becoming a roadblock for releases, because I have seen that when there are security vulnerabilities which are critical and you try to stop the release, they don't like you. So maybe you're not doing that. So
yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. And it goes to what Chirag mentioned, right? We are business enablers. At the end of the day, you partner with the business, various business within the company, the different teams, so that you enable selling your product. You make sure you help the brand. But then going back to the evolution, right? If you go back even 15, maybe 20 years ago, CISO was generally not a thing. Most of the product went on-prem. The IT was responsible for managing, maintaining security, securing your entire environment. And then we had the advent of SaaS, and that's where companies started entrusting their data to the SaaS vendors. So it became extremely important for these companies to have confidence in these vendors that they're going to protect this data. And hence the rise of the security leaders, the rise of the CISOs. And that transformation has been happening over the last 10 to 15 years. We've seen different technologies being introduced. As I said, cryptocurrency before, now AI. Things will change. Technology will keep changing. There's going to be new challenges, and hence the CISOs themselves will have to evolve according to these challenges. And Naveen mentioned something earlier, right, where 20 years ago when Bill Gates was trying to give a demo, it was crashing. So security was like that maybe 15 years ago, where there are a lot of challenges with security. But then over a period of time, that will mature, and the CISO's role will truly become business partners, business enablers, maybe even salesy to some extent. That's where, if you go back last year, CISA, for example, came out with a directive where they said security by design, security by default. And that is what we will start seeing. And that is where the maturity of these products will increase, which eventually will help the CISOs to transform the way they are being looked at. And then maybe the 18 months will become 36 and more for most CISOs.
That's good. With the new tools coming into the marketplace, I'm sure Piyush is bringing one of them. It might even extend longer. I don't think Piyush heard. Did you hear that, Piyush? I said with the new tools you're probably bringing to the market, even the role might extend beyond 36 months.
You know,
and actually, I don't know what tool he's bringing to the market. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, nobody knows. Nobody knows. And I want to start with a quote. The quote Einstein made about 50, 60, 70 years ago, approximately 60 years ago, that keep doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome is the real definition of insanity. And cyber is not too far from that. Because we think that somehow, like I agree with where Chirag started, that, hey, the world started with all reactive, that I have sufficient people, sufficient money, sufficient tools to really respond to everything that is coming my way, is actually going to change. Especially when it comes to AI, it's going to significantly transform how the cyber operations have been, functioning and performing. So we need to look at things differently if we want to expect a different outcome. That's number one. Number two, there are hundreds and thousands of guidelines, executive orders, everything falls in place. What it does is it pushes the focus more on compliance than security. And there's a big difference between a compliance and security. Number three, AI is not a traditional problem. AI is not another control plane or data plane attack that somehow by adding few more rules in certain systems, SIMs, you'll be able to detect it. AI, the big difference is going to be is the thing that we have been protecting for the last 50 years, which is the data. Data has become the threat vector this time. So now the same data that attackers are you going to use to exploit the system. And that is why that's a small example of why threats evolving because of generative AI needs to be relooked at how you need to respond. So that's where I'm gonna let it back to Naveen.
Thank you.
Great points, I think.
Really appreciate it.
I think Puneet has a question in the...
Yeah, that's what I was going at. Yes. Puneet, do you want to introduce yourself 2 minutes? Just sorry, 2 line, your introduction for many folks who don't know you. And he's joining, by the way, from down under, even though it's sunny there.
Now because it's the Tuesday morning, so yeah, from Melbourne. So my name is Puneet Tikko. I have been working with Cisco for more than 2.5 years. So my role is like leader in information security. So what you said, like I'm part of a team like which is a compliance focus, but there is a gap between the compliance and security. 100% agree with you, Piyush, on that. So the question to all the panelists is in relation to the because there has been the recent instances in Australia where the governing authority has starting looking at the board and their duty of care, and what they're saying, if the board is not formulating the culture, the security culture, they can be pinned for their inactions. So my question is in relation to that, like in terms of, the board is required to set the security tone, security culture. So how has you seen this, like in terms of your CISO's role, like interaction with the board? Like, is it still one step, like another side, the board talks to the CISO or deals with the CISOs or CIOs, or now the CISO is getting the the seat on the bench and they can discuss the problems and how the management issues can be sorted. So yeah, so that's the real gist of my question.
Right.
Thanks, Danny.
Okay, thank you, Puneet.
Puneet, I think I can relate to it. Probably Vasant can relate as well, since we both are kind of reporting into, we are practitioners more than a product innovators like Piyush and Naveen. So we can probably relate to more, right? The relationship between board and CISOs is definitely changing. There used to be, kind of like someone in between. You had a shield in a way. Someone was reporting on behalf of you, so you're not literally asking or answering questions. You're not sitting in the board meetings. Sometimes you are called in once in a while, but not always, right? This has changed. This has changed, although it's not 100% there yet, but it has changed. Board has an expectation of CISO being there and being able to sell it to board as well, what the progress is and what the requirements are and what is the risk for the organization, giving the full picture. I think CISOs do go through their senior management as well, right? It could be CIO, CTO, some CISOs report into legal team. Some CISOs report directly to CEO as well, right? And some have a direct channel to board as well. I've had an experience directly with the board. I've had an experience with the product officer as well as the CEO, and also had an experience with the cloud and senior cloud SVP of cloud, right? Which is CTO or CIO type of role. So a message is clear. What you want to show is what should be shown up there in the board team as well. The message shouldn't change whether you are presenting or you're not presenting. The other thing is that the interactions, right? You want to make sure that you are doing, you are having a board prep ahead of time, meaning certain set of board members, you are just having that casual one-on-one and giving them a brief of what your report is going to look like. Getting the feedback, learning from them, making changes according to feedback, so there is no surprises, there is no shock in the boardroom, right? Whether you are there or not, right? Eventually the question's gonna get to you, feedback is gonna come to you, whether CIO is in the middle or you are direct. Sometimes some questions and some interactions are unexpected, right? Because you don't know. People going to have different perspective. There are board members who are not technical as well, and there are board members who hear these buzzwords of Log4j, ransomware type of deals, and they ask you question because they heard something from their CIO in their company, or they heard from some friends. So you have to kind of have a very basic kitchen English that gets used in the boardroom. Make sure everyone understands what you're coming from. that's what I've seen. Of course, everyone can have a different experience, and Vasant can add more. I'm sure he's probably dealing with the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question, Puneet. It's not just Australia, right? Even in the US last year, SEC came out with this cybersecurity disclosure rule. And one of the things that they were focusing on was the structure of the board. Is there somebody who is a security, if not an expert, somebody who understands security on the board? That almost became a prerequisite, although it's not mandated. So we see a lot of folks in the board who understands security. And when you look at the boards, they are well read. They understand what's going on in the outside world. So you're right. The security culture has to start there at the board, and that's the best way for the company to start embracing security. Without that, again, it's the carrot and stick, right? You both have to be used in the right amounts. So at Couchbase, I'd like to speak specifically about Couchbase, right? The board is very active, and there is a strong emphasis for security. Since the day I've joined Couchbase, I've been given a seat at the table. Every quarter, I go to these board meetings, I provide an update on our security posture. I provide an update on the progress that we've been making, provide an update on the roadmaps that we have. And there are questions. How do you tell if the board is really interested, if they're adding value? It's when they start engaging with you. It's when they start asking you questions. It's not just easy questions. There are tough questions. And that is when you know the board is completely in support of the security initiatives. And that can only be a good sign. And it's been a great experience. And most public companies have been doing this, but CISO may or may not have a seat at the table. As you also mentioned, there could be a CIO in between or somebody else, but the maturity of the company shows when the CISO has been given a seat at the table in board meetings.
Thank you, Vasant. So unless someone has anything on this topic, Piyush, do you want to, from your experience more as a innovator and a solution provider, what have you seen? You've been part of a public company and startups. Yeah.
I've personally started seeing CSOs as part of the board meetings, the C levels. It's depending on the size of organization, honestly, given there's a complexity of managing the budgets and procurement. I'm starting to feel that when organizations were looking at, so like I think 10 years ago, I've been in this for 20 years, so selling and building. 10 years ago, security was a function of how much IT budget you have. And but now security has becoming the business budget, which is a big transition I've personally seen. When I say business budget, business have started to account certain R&D money to invest in security, whether it is your code security, whether it's your infrastructure security, whether it is your, now AI will come in. Where do we think that the budget for AI is going to come in? AI, the budget is going to come in from the from development and from the R&D itself. So I personally starting to see chief security officers being part of the board, part of the C levels. Again, if you just take Fortune 100 and 500, that is not all those guys are not just the world. There are other 100,000, 200,000 companies. You would see it's a much prevalent story now where CSOs, CISOs are representing the entire function of the board meetings now. So this thing has improved dramatically in last 7-8 years in my personal experience.
Thank you, Piyush. There's a question from Ganesh. Ganesh, do you want to introduce yourself, a couple of lines quickly, and then with your question, I know you put it in chat box. If you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yes, thanks, Naveen. Thank you all for being here. So I'm with a company called Confer. We're based in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and the Milpitas area. We are working in the area of continuous governance. We're building tools to do that. So the question here is, I mean, AI just sort of complicates matters a bit more than necessary, or than previously. The notion of continuous governance exists, and Piyush, you talked about it. Vasant, you also alluded to that. You don't want security to be reactive. But the notion there is that you have to, the only way you do that is you make good behavior a habit, but you have to provide directives for the organization to behave, to do that, to follow that, right? And there are two things that you have: your best practice policies that you may have learned, and then of course there are directives from regulations that you have to comply with. I mean, there's compliance and then there's conformance. So one of the questions there is, how do you engender continuous governance, for one, and then sort of putting measures in place so that you can actually measure continuous, that are you good today? Were you, and if you're good yesterday or you weren't good, what does it take to become better? Right. So that's a question, that I want to pose to you from the position of a CISO, to say, if I had to go look at a dashboard and say, how good am I today? What do you do? How do you go about it today?
Chirag and Basant, any of you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. So you're absolutely right. Governance is important, especially in today's world. And if you're a SaaS company, it becomes even more critical. There are regulatory requirements, there are customer requirements. If you handle health information, you need to be HIPAA compliant. If you handle credit card information, you need to be PCI compliant. So there's a list of security controls that you have to comply with. And then the way you ensure this governance is you implement these controls, but then what typically happens is, towards the end of the year, audit time, you start reaching out to these stakeholders. You ask them for evidence. It could be over a period of time. It could be a point in time. But then your question specifically is continuous governance. Now,
Right.
Yeah, what do we do? There could be qualitative ways of doing this. Quantitative is not something that I've really seen in the market. If that's something that you're building, that's wonderful. But what we've been doing is, if a security control is required to be demonstrated, say once a year, we do that more often, so that maybe say once a quarter. That's something that we use a tool where we have automations. It either collects this information or it notifies the relevant control owners to ensure there is compliance. So that is one of the things that we've been doing. Additionally, internal audit, that's something that is, I think, an extremely important thing. Again, there's no automation here at this point in time, but something where we regularly meet with our control owners and do have these internal audits throughout the year. So that way, it sort of ensures that governance is happening on a constant basis throughout the year. Again, as I said, from a quantitative perspective, that maturity is not there, I don't think, especially in the industry. And if there are any products out there, it would be a boon for CISOs.
Thank you, Basant. So why don't we jump into, because you're getting towards, we haven't got to the main topic of, more around the use, whether you call it widespread, that's what we would love to hear from Chirag and Basant and even Piyush when he's talking to customers, and of course, you all folks in the audience, is the use of generative Gen AI in your industries for all security, compliance, or the risk management side. So most of the time, if you are when you're using those applications, the key is to ask the right questions, and a lot of questions around your security assurance, explainability, transparency, as well as privacy, right? So how do you see that, Chirag? I mean, I know we had a little call the other day, prep call, you mentioned you are looking at a lot of these areas, but how do you see, how are you looking at it, or your insights?
Well, the idea is to, of course, there is no direct governance, or rather framework, that is out there. if you really look at it, industry standard, everyone is doing their own little thing, right? And I think we talked in the past is all about creating your framework and figuring out where your data boundary is and making sure that you have a good governance model on top of it and you are continuously assessing that scope, right? We are kind of in process of leveraging AI tools itself, right, to prepare us for the defense. So using AI for AI, which is a term that a lot of people came up with, right? And there are people who are using that as well, is advanced AI tools to predict and prevent the attacks. That is the start. Predict and prevent the risk. That is the, it's not there yet 100%, but at least we created our scope. We defined the wall of garden and we started maintaining that area with the AI tool. I see that there's a lot of things here. As AI goes into different organizations, people started different teams, different business within organizations start looking at advancing in AI technologies for their business gain, for their goals. That's where supply chain security comes into place as well, right? For us to manage solutions that address third-party risk management using proactive security, predictive analysis, risk analysis, and figure out how we're gonna manage that fertile ground for innovation, which we call, right? So how do we manage that? Again, going back to Piyush's earlier comment about data security, that is what the problem is, data. Everything else is data. And how do you comply with managing that risk? So continuous monitoring, developing your own hybrid framework, automation, automate the threat detection and responses. These are some of the areas that we cover for anything AI in our organization. Everyone understands that the AI technologies raises concerns around data leakage, intellectual property theft, and compliance with privacy laws as well. So how do you manage and make sure that you're not just spilling the data outside of your boundaries that you put together? It's all about adversarial risk and misuse of the information as well, right? So it has to be contained. Applying encryption and strict access controls around that boundary is also as equally important.
Vasant, how about you from your organizational perspective? How are you looking at the containing or putting guardrails inside your company for the use of Gen AI apps?
Yeah. So the way we look at AI is so there's two categories of users. So especially from a tech perspective, tech company perspective, you could either be a consumer or a producer or both. If you're manufacturing products, developing products, and integrating AI or building AI related products, then you're a producer. Most other use cases, your employees would be consumers. So when we talk about guardrails, best practices, you have to look at it from, in many cases, different lens for these different use cases. As a producer, as a software company, for example, when you're developing AI applications, there are certain security controls that you need to put in place. You can, most of us would have heard of OWASP top 10 for web applications. There's also an OWASP top 10 for LLM applications. It is, it's something that's already available. So just last week, I was having a discussion. We actually have these compliance meetings within our company, and any new feature that is introduced, it goes through these compliance meetings. We understand these features, and then we do security reviews. So that's an area where that was an opportunity for us to say, hey guys, what security controls do you have when you're developing these applications? Are the engineers well trained on these threats, these risks? Is there a threat model that happens that is specific to AI? right? So that's from a producer perspective. And as a consumer, again, AI can, people say, do anything and everything under the sun. But is that how we want to use AI? We should identify specific use cases, and these use cases could be different for different departments within the company. And based off of that, you will have a generic guardrails, generic set of guidelines for the entire company. But if there's something specific for a department, then you make sure you customize those guardrails, or if there are any additional security controls required, then you go through that. And we do that as part of our vendor management process. We first ask the specific use case that the department is trying to solve, and then how AI will help them. Based off of that, we customize certain controls for those groups. So at a high level, that's generally how we've been trying to attack this. And there are products out there. There is promise with these products, but again, it's a question of maturity at this point in time. We'll have to wait and watch until we have really mature products that can address all of these AI-related challenges.
Thank you. Piyush, in your new adventure, I'm sure you've talked to tons of customers and obviously around various areas surrounding this whole use of Gen AI applications and the security, etc. So what is any insights you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from a product standpoint, customers are very, very cautious. They are looking at the two kind of things are starting to happen. Number one, everybody I think now understand that it is not a new database where there are rows and columns and you can make SQL queries and find out what you have. So there's one question that I get almost every conversation we run into is, are you using my data to train your model? And most AI-based solutions today are based on that, because they're building conversations, they're doing RAGs, they are, in order to do an effective similarity searches using RAG, you need to have your model understand your formats and all those kind of things. Number two is if I'm going to open up my organization for the models that you are using, no matter how solid those models are from hallucination and efficacy standpoint, what are the guardrails that you are putting in front of your models? So a lot of questions are being raised now for public models, like even ChatGPTs. The trust on some of these solutions do not exist right now. The only way it is going to happen over a period of time is by showing the productivity and the gain over existing solutions, when customers will start to take more risk by adopting these solutions. So if you think that somehow you can push an AI in and try to show a little bit of a marketing value, it's not going to work. In fact, it's going to do more bad for you, because then you will start to see more resistance from your customer to adopt your solutions. So unless you really do the full life cycle of AI, generative AI, and put the right guardrails in place, don't attempt into it. I've been doing this for 14 months now. It is not easy. The technology is not prime time ready. It's still a lot of work has to go in before it can actually become the mainstream ready technology. So there's a lot of work to be done, and customers are still evaluating whether it's a right venture to invest and spend their money.
Yeah, thanks for that candid answer about some of these products not mainstream ready at this point in time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Piyush. I wanted to call out, there are some new folks today. Ria, Anthony, I know you're security champion at SAP. So do you have any perspectives or do you have any questions for the folks if you're interested in sharing?
Hey, Naveen. No, I was.
You wanna maybe 2 minutes? You wanna do a 2-line intro other than what I said, more so folks know about what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, my name is Rhea. This is the first time I'm joining this meetup. Actually just came across this on LinkedIn today because Naveen had sent an invite earlier. So that's how I came across this and hoping to join further. I guess this is a regular meetup, and it was really great hearing Piyush, Chirag, and Vasant today and hearing their perspective. From a job wise, I'm a product security architect. I work on researching threats to AI and risks in AI at SAP. And I develop guidance such as open source usage, different types of open source model consumptions, and how to track its risks and kind of outline some of its mitigation plans and oversee some of those efforts for some development teams. But that's in a brief of what I do. But yeah, this is absolutely interesting to hear, I guess, the CISO's perspective on how different roles come together and the difference between compliance and security and how that ties in together.
So is there anything you'd like to share, which is, I mean, nothing confidential from, I think, at SAP, how you are looking at the use of Gen AI and the security around the Gen AI apps, which you're, I mean, obviously it's a huge enterprise. So anything you want to share, just which is more of a public knowledge. Obviously, we're not trying to get it.
We are working on a concept called the MLSecOps, which is a subsection of the DevSecOps primarily. This is something that I've been working on to kind of understand the risk in the entire pipeline, all the way from, understanding from the threat modeling to the model consumption model, understanding where we source the model from, and the different types of data that are involved, the different pieces that are involved in terms of licensing or contractual obligations, things like that. So we are looking into it, and there are certain risks that we have already outlined in terms of how to identify these risks in terms of threat modeling. But as such, this is so evolving, and to consider that in terms of what SAP does in terms of SAP's application, I guess it's a little bit trickier, I guess, because we're not building tools like ChatGPT, right? Our application is a little bit I guess the application piece is a little bit different, and so there's nothing that I have prepared to share at this point.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you, Ria. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who has any perspectives on the area around this whole use of Gen AI and the security in your organizations? Whether you want insights or you have questions for the panelists.
I think Ganesh have a question.
Yeah, actually, so there are a couple of issues with, I mean, I've just said AI, but also Gen AI. So what we've encountered is obviously it's pretty easy to start leveraging the public AI. I mean, and you would say ChatGPT, let's just call it as open AI, whether you use it as a chatbot or using via APIs, you could use Gemini the same way. The issue again is how much interaction do you have with it, and even if and there are multiple ways. I mean, you might say, I'm going to just train it with your own data, and I think OpenAI also has a statement or a bunch of statements that says, for an enterprise, we'll guarantee, or we'll try our very best to make sure that there's no data being used. There's also geographical issues that you have, because folks in Europe don't want data or any interactions across the borders. Even within countries in Europe, they're pretty touchy about things going out there. So I think from a Gen AI perspective, that becomes important. The other issue, which is internal, which is engineering driven, is in the rush to get competitive advantage, folks start using those tools, whether it's used inside or is it sanctioned or unsanctioned, because I think everybody wants to get there. And everybody wants to use code generation pretty easily. So there are issues in there, especially with third-party software or open source software as to tracking of of certs and all of those issues to say, where are the security things that come in there? And you're bringing in a tail of a camel, and how many camels are being pulled into the tent without your knowledge? Those are big issues. And that's where I was asking about guidelines, and directives down to the individual developer to say, you shall do this, and everything that you do, I do want some oversight, or at least some evidence that you have done these good things, so that we can continuously track it, or at least catch before the proverbial yogurt hits the fan.
Thank you, Ganesh. Anyone wants to say? I think we are already 6 minutes out. I know we kind of lost, 10 minutes in the beginning.
I mean, you got to have another session on this, because I think this is a big topic now.
No, absolutely. Yeah. We will have another one. Srinivas or anyone else have any questions, you guys?
So one question I have, I mean, so if you look at the security, from the past systems administration, if you take, before the VM world, right? So there is the entire, new product category to handle IAM roles and, things like that. So with that in perspective, and now that you're going to have, these AI agents everywhere, and is the security posture is going to change in a similar fashion, to bring in the new products into the market?
Piyush, do you want to start off with that? Because since you've been here, obviously, I'm sure you've done tons of research market and all those things, if you want to share anything.
Yeah, so if I understood your question, Srinivas, you're asking that with the adoption one, I think you're inferring that where the industry is from the AI adoption side, and what are the typical trends in adopting AI models. Is that the correct question? Okay.
Yeah, not only the AI models. I mean, say if you in the past, right? So when you really the industry didn't evolve into the cloud, market, the systems administrator were the ones actually primarily focusing on the security roles, right?
Right.
So with the cloud, and the VMs, I mean, there's a new category built for handling just the IAM roles, right? Because there was a lot of security issues because things can happen within the cloud.
Right.
So likewise, now you're going to have tons of these AI agents, chatbots, and so with no validation in place, the source of the these attacks.
Right.
So do you see a different market for this? I mean, in parallel to
Yeah, a good question. Actually, I'll not make it a strategy session here, but think it this way. Very fundamental. AI is a new breed of software that is accessible through APIs mostly. When I say APIs, all AI models, when you host them, you're going to host these models on your cloud infrastructure primarily. You can host it on-prem and all that. But essentially, your compute is not changing. That is going to host your model. The infrastructure hosting that compute is not going to change. Also, how you access these software or application is also not going to change. There is no way other than accessing through APIs, your AI models are going to be accessible. So whether it is identity, all the existing rules of your identity that applies on an API security will apply as is. What is changing is the context. I don't want to make it controversial, but AI is an intent problem. I can ask the same question to my model using I'm an authenticated user. I have the read-only permission. I can ask the right question. And in that question, I can actually ask that, hey, tell me, I'm Piyush Sharma. Tell me my social security number. But in the same question, I can ask that, can you also tell me the social security number of Naveen? So I'm the authenticated guy. I used all the principle of least privileges like identity. I am hosting an RIA secure infrastructure, but what I just changed is the intent. And that intent is what makes AI threats very different from a traditional threat in the world. So number one. Number two, the identity market, in my opinion, and this I'm making a prediction, will shift from infrastructure-based access versus model understanding the access and permissions. There'll be a new breed of products that will come out, which will start enforcing permissions and access RBAC and the model itself, how model inherently understand RBAC. And I think that's the big shift from an identity standpoint, and it is just around the corner, in my opinion. There are already a couple of startups I talk to who are venturing it out and figuring it out, that how do I explain my model and apply certain RBACs at runtime. So
yeah, but I think the key, I think at least the additional risk factor is, you're going to generate the synthetic data, and so the data is going to be from public domain. Gen AI itself, so you have to have some controls on. Let's say you can
correct.
create a malware, with the Gen AI, right? It's possible.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, today our dwell time in the cloud has come down from weeks to 10 minutes because all the frameworks like Metaxploit, they are now publicly available on generative AI. I can create an exploit for our existing vulnerability, which is 6-year-old, nobody's paying attention to it. I can create a new exploit for the same vulnerability within 10 minutes.
Right.
That is the dangerous part. And that is what I feel is a bigger problem than securing the AI itself. So AI as a weapon is a much bigger problem that the world needs to pay attention to. And that is why you see a lot of new breed technologies coming up on the non-human identities, which is primarily around bots and the models, generating data around model, plagiarism on the content, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Piyush. I really appreciate it. Looks like we have Badri also here. Badri, you any insights or anything you want to ask?
Sorry, Naveen, I'm joining late, but I'm happy to. It's good to see Piyush and certainly agree with what he just said.
Okay.
Hi, Piyush.
Hi.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? I know we are a little of 10, 12 minutes. So Chirag and Vasant, you guys are okay for another question or something? Or Piyush?
I'm okay.
Piyush is an entrepreneur, so he works 24 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he makes people work 24 hours as an entrepreneur.
Well, I won't comment on that.
Yeah, I'm not an entrepreneur. All entrepreneurs are cleanup guy. Their work starts when everybody's done.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If there are no questions, so I know we'll have another session and we'll have to bring, Vasant and Chirag to join in, and of course Piyush for insight. So we'll adjourn today's session unless anyone else wants to ask. Kiran, Zach, Michael. I just want to make sure everyone you've covered. Venkata and Steve, Kirsty, of course, Yogesh and Ria. You already. Kotai Babu. Also.
So Naveen, the only thing next time, if you want to discuss, is again and I'm just purely talking on the larger organizations, right? So there are these three components which are in terms of governance, risk, and compliance. They treat all of these separately. So how does the Gen AI basically impact in all these three areas, and how different products are trying to help in all of these areas or combine together or one or the other? I think we need to discuss a little bit more on those.
Okay, no, sure, definitely. Okay, so with that, so I would like to really thank Vasant, Chirag, Piyush, and Jayshree, Ria.
No, and you are the one who organizes this. So thank you, Naveen. Because
I enjoy it, bringing all this, talented. I learn, every day. That's my goal in life.
I learn every time I join. So thank you, thank you.
I love, because I call it like, surround yourself with the smartest people, and I keep getting smarter and smarter, little bit, So that's why I always call Piyush. I call all Chirag and Vasant to join in, and everyone. So I really, really appreciate all of you joining and making it a great community. And Puneet, you didn't even have coffee and you just joined in right out of the bed.
Hey, we could have gotten up early.
And Steve, I'm sure you're enjoying the Central Coast Ocean over there.
Absolutely. By the way, the one thing I was going to mention, some things were mentioned about the AI and the risk, of AI and security for AI, and a lot of that is because to train the models, lots of times they use the data plane to train the models, but there are companies out there that are developing generative AI that does not use the data plane. They don't touch the data in the data plane. They use the control plane. So that allows companies like that are HIPAA, like healthcare companies, are really interested in that type of a generative AI product.
Yeah, I just wanted to add insights. So we are more discussing about the organization. So recently I had a chance to participate in one of the cybersecurity conferences at Wall Street. So their FBI and other organizations have participated. So they said that, of course, organization data is more important, but what we are putting on social media and the behavioral patterns which are being analyzed by AI and the threats which are coming out of that are more to the people. So that is more concern for them. So just wanted to add the insights.
And so with that, I think we'll conclude our session for today. Unless Chirag, do you want to say last few words of any like new kind of solutions you would like to see and you're ready to, you got the budget approved. So if there are any entrepreneurs here, including Pius, might want to contact you. By the way, just so please feel free to share your LinkedIn if you want to. You don't have to. I mean, there's not a requirement. If you want to, idea of this is to make it interactive so you guys can reach out to each other instead of, professionally, not stalking.
You all are on my Naveen and Piyush, you guys are on my speed dial anyways. Number one. So don't worry. But there are so many different technologies that keep popping up. But the one that we use also are bringing in new modules of AI and new innovative technologies like Zoom itself, right? 5 years back, it was something different. Now they have a lot of features. So things like that, we'll continue to use it. And, I'm, like I said, I'm on speed dial with most of you. So we'll definitely connect. And let's have another session, right? It will be more
absolutely
to have that. I have to drop. I apologize for that, but let's connect soon.
No, definitely. Thank you, Chirag, for being part of it today. Really excited and a lot of insightful. Basant, same thing. Anything innovative you're looking for from Pius or someone else? Just kidding.
No, there's
Thank you.
Yeah, there's quite a few entrepreneurs here. Looking forward to new products from you guys. Nothing specific from me.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Okay.
Thank you,
All
everyone.
right. So
Thanks, Naveen.
thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks as
joining.
always.
You just joined. Looks like you missed our excitement here. And thank you, Kirsty, again so much. And I appreciate it. All right.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Kirsty, do you want to say a few things?
Thanks, everyone.
Weber Cafe, please go ahead. We can't have these conferences unless Kirsty and Avinash and the gang does all this, and really appreciate her making the time out of her beautiful Mexico or wherever you are, Kirsty.
Thanks everyone for joining. It was a great session. Sorry about the pause in the middle, and look forward to the next one. Thanks, Naveen.
Okay. All right. Thank you again, guys. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next month. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry
Bye-bye.
to interrupt. There's one thing that I wanted to share. I don't know if everyone's going to be interested, and maybe we could talk about it next time.
Please.
Which is when you said you caught me off guard, but there's one topic that I'm working on quite intensively, which is the AI bomb. I don't know if everyone knows about it, but I'm working with Helen Oakley, and we kind of do multiple sessions on AI bomb and the use of AI bomb for LLMs, AI in general, generative AI, how to outlining fields that we can use to assess risks. So I've added the Tiger team from we have a NIST working group. So y'all can take a look at it, and maybe I can speak more in our next meeting. Maybe.
Oh, that's awesome, Ria. I mean, is it going to be is it more like a corollary of that AI management system? The NIST has AI RMF, what is the risk management framework?
Yes.
And then you have ISO has a new standard called 42001, but looks like you're working more with the NIST.
This is a NIST. This is going to be a NIST framework, and we have a working group in collaboration with NIST. But I've added it in the chat. But next time, let me know when y'all are meeting next, and I can do maybe.
Definitely.
Like a minute
You'll just please look out for the invite. I'm sure it'll be towards the last week of. Usually we do it on Monday, either on the last week or last week of the month.
Got it.
I try to post it. All right. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Naveen.
Thanks, Naveen.
You can have your coffee now. Thank you, Kirsty, again.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye, Naveen.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.